Well, good morning and welcome to Full Potential Fridays. My name is Heidi Denning, and for the next 10 minutes, we are going to be sharing a shot of inspiration and practical strategies to empower you and your team. I'm here with my very talented co-host, Nina Mapson Bone, with no S on the end. Good morning, Nina. How are you this morning, and what are we going to focus on?
Good morning, Heidi. I'm so excited to be back. Welcome to our first one of 2021. Today we're talking all about setting up your teams for success, and particularly how understanding your strengths and understanding the strengths of those in your team can really have a significant impact on, things like vitality, well-being, collaboration, and also ultimately performance. So before we get into it, I'd love to encourage people that are watching and listening, if you know what your strengths are, tell us your key strength in the comments. We'd love to see what some of the great strengths out there are from the audience. But meantime, Heidi, back to you for a little comment on strengths and the team generally.
Yeah, Nina, it's interesting. I did my first strength testing only a couple of weeks ago, and I was really interested in what came out of it, and especially one that apparently I have a strength called woo. Now, I thought, how did they know that I had a little bit of woo-woo in my personal life? But of course, it's got nothing to do with that.
Exactly.
What I really loved was that I had an understanding, first of all, of these 5 strengths that I have to confirm what perhaps I knew intuitively and what that means in the way I can interact with others. But mostly what I loved about it was that I now don't beat myself up as much about having to be able to do this, do that, be strong at everything, because I'm a bit of I should be doing this, I should be doing that. Rather than just going, right, this is what I'm good at. These are my strengths. How can I maximize that? And that's what I really loved about this really deep understanding of it.
I love that, Heidi. And you've really hit on my first point there. So the first point is all about self-awareness. If we want to set our teams up to be successful, particularly, with a new year or a kind of new attitude around everything we've gone through recently, it always starts with self-awareness. If we know what our own strengths are, like it's great to see in the comments, I can see Tula and Nicole, there are people that know what their strengths are. If we know what our strengths are, then it can really help us. And this is key, particularly in the work world where the change in AI and the change in computer technology has freed us up somewhat from the kind of repetitive, mundane tasks and allowed us to look at how can we work more with the creative and the social and the strategic. And when we use our strengths to do that, it really helps us. And I think one of the key things with self-awareness is that we're often aware of what we call our known strengths. We often know intrinsically in ourselves what our key strengths are, but sometimes they're the ones we overplay. And actually, it's our unrealized strengths, the ones we don't realize that we have, that can actually be used more and get more out of us. So I think that self-awareness is great, and it's really it's great that you've actually done that yourself, Heidi, as well. So tell me a little bit about woo. What is woo?
Well, in a nutshell, it means more that I can woo people. Now, that sounds absolutely terrible, of course, but it's just about being able to perhaps, tap into people and listen well and get a better understanding of them and how I can interact better with them. So, I've always, I suppose, considered myself a people person. So it makes sense. I love people and I'm very curious about people. And I think that particular strength really describes me well. How about you, Nina? What's your big one?
Well, it's interesting. The one you've just touched on there, which is actually one of my unrealized strengths. So it's a big strength, but I don't use it enough, is curiosity. So this desire to learn and find out more. And I do it a bit, but sometimes I can get so busy at work, I don't use it enough. I don't give myself enough time to do that. So I think that's a great one. And that ties in nicely when we're talking here with our respective strengths with the second point, Heidi, which is, I guess, once you're aware of your own, the key then is to how do we become aware of those in our team? How do we have that awareness of others? Because the more we are aware of other people's strengths, the better that is for us to work together. So often you can see in some teams, if you're not aware of the different strengths in a team, that can cause clashes. And a good example is that if you have time optimization, I can see that Tula has time optimization there. You're a kind of speedy person. You're really good at making the most of every minute that you have. And that's really crucial strengths for a team to have. But another strength that's important that sometimes might clash with that is detail. The person that has that real depth of that detail, that's going to take the time to really get into the gritty. And that
Mm.
detail is just as important. But if you weren't aware that someone else in your team had a different strength, the communication and the way they work together could end up clashing and could end up causing problems. So to actually set your team up for strength, if you have that awareness of others, you can really learn how to play off each other and how to make that complementary. I mean, Heidi, can you think of a time when maybe you've clashed with someone and in retrospect you've gone, oh, maybe it was just that we had different strengths? Does that ring any bells for you?
Do you mean apart from the clashes that I've had with my husband, especially during lockdown?
It's probably the same thing, to be fair.
Yeah, look, you know, it's interesting. I mean, I talk a lot about this with this self-awareness and having awareness of the people in your team and their strengths. When we look at the reaction people have to stress and challenging times, you know, that often people go into freeze, fight, or flight. And, you know, if I know you well, Nina, I know that you're an action girl. You get things done all the time. But perhaps if I know that when you're really stressed out, you start procrastinating. If I've taken the time to understand that about you, if I see you procrastinating and not getting something done, rather than going, oh, for God's sake, Nina, would you just get it done? Like, far out, come on. My question would be instead, what's going on with Nina? Should I check in with her to see if she's okay? And I think that, it's the same with, but different, the way I'm using that with the kind of work I do and the work we do when we're doing our programs, this beautiful combination of understanding the people in our teams so we can respond appropriately in their good times or when they're being challenged. Would that be right?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I love that. Kind of idea of the understanding makes you, I guess, more compassionate and more empathetic. And, you know, empathy for me is one of my lower ones. So it's good to, when you have that understanding, it does bring some of those words. I love Andrea's comment there about intuition being her superpower. I think strength with superpower, it really is what sets a team up to be successful, because when you combine, you know, it's a bit like, I'm going to go crazy here, a bit like the Avengers Endgame, when you've got all of the superheroes together and all of the superpowers combined, that's where there's real strength, you know, and that's what setting a team up for success is all about. And I think that brings us on to the third point, which is really just that when you actually set your team up to work with their strengths, it improves everything. Particularly, you can see on the screen here, well-being, vitality, productivity. You know, for the purposes of these conversations we have around full potential, well-being and vitality, there's research to back this up. We know that individuals and teams do better around well-being and vitality when they're working to their strengths. But all of the metrics go up: employee engagement, productivity, company performance, profit, you know, all of it. So it's a no-brainer to try and get people. I might even start saying superpowers instead of strengths now. Let's all use our superpowers at work. Because
thank you, Andrea. We're gonna take that one from you, Andrea. If I hope you don't mind.
No, I love it. It's great, isn't it? But that's the key. That's the key to setting people up with success. So I think if you can remember that, they're the things that will take you forward, Heidi.
Absolutely. And I'd love any comments regarding the strength that you're seeing within your team that perhaps have changed, because of course, Nina, we are working in a different world, and it's a lot of teams have actually not met each other face to face, have they? Over the last 12 months. And of course, we can't pick up the cues. We can't have that deeper understanding that a face-to-face environment allows for. So what are you seeing in regards to that, working with remote teams? You know, can we still tap into people's strengths in the remote world that we're living in?
Yeah, it's a really crucial point, because when we're not getting the cues, we're not getting the tone of voice and the kind of visual cues in the same way as we did when we were all in the office all day, every day. It's harder to pick that up. And that's where that understanding of others and the working to your strengths can really help play to that. So I think you're right, Heidi. It's more crucial now than ever before. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah. Well, thank you, everybody, for being here live on Full Potential Fridays. Next week, Nina, what are we looking at?
We are looking at leadership resilience and how to fill that bucket up, as you like to say, Heidi.
I do like to say that, and we certainly need a little bit more of that so we can navigate through this, again, uncertain year. But we'd love for you to join us next week, same time, same place. But in the meantime, if you would like to find out if your team are reaching their full potential right now, or how you would like to budge that, please go to the Full Potential Teams online quiz and take the test. It's free and it's very short, and we look forward to seeing you next week. See you, everyone. Bye.